they're looking at alternative ways to try and stop people from absconding once they arrive here across the Channel, and they're trying to prevent them from absconding, from fleeing from their accommodation, whether it's hotel accommodation or anywhere else, because we do know this is quite a big problem. There have been reports of thousands of Albanians, for example, absconding from their accommodation. Of course, this could be a risk to public safety. And in my view, it is the government's first duty to protect its citizens. But I want to know what my panel think about this, because lots of people have pointed out practical problems with this as a potential policy idea. Ankle tags, electronic tagging, GPS tracking. Perhaps it might help keep people safe, but is it really practical?
It all sounds a bit beyond our government, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, Bibi Stockholm hasn't housed anyone for any protracted period, and now we've got other complaints coming out about it. You know, we have a complete breakdown in governance when it comes to our borders and what we do with people who illegally enter the country. But I just want to go back to the Illegal Migration Act, which was the bill before it obviously became the act. And when it was in contemplation, and as it went through Parliament, Suella Braverman explained the time it was taking to get that bill through Parliament was necessary to ensure that it actually did what we wanted of it. And the first draft of that bill stated that the Secretary of State would be directed to detain and then deport people who entered the country illegally. What the Act says is that she is obliged to deport and has the right to detain. And that is a marked watering down in the obligations. She would have, under the draft of the bill, been required to detain and deport. She now has the right to detain and the obligation to deport.
How can you deport without first detaining?
Well, that's the point. How can you deport without detaining? And because she's lost the obligation and only has the right to detain, she's now having to consider other mechanisms. And presumably the reason they had to get rid of the obligation to detain was because we're incapable of detaining, because we don't have the adequate space to deliver on that promise if we were to make it to the British people. So now we're looking at convoluted schemes like tagging, and there are already videos on TikTok from Albanians showing how you cut these tags off.
Yes, I think we could show these, actually. Essentially, Albanians posting, I think we could show them, well, cutting off their tags. They call them British Rolexes or something like this.
Yeah, exactly.
And demonstrating how to cut them off. So these clearly aren't fail-safe, are they, James? But the problem is that the government have committed to deporting those who arrive in this country via this route, by this irregular means, by this illegal route across the Channel. And now they don't actually have enough space to detain people before they deport them. So they're now saying that this is the way we can keep track, keep people safe, make sure we know where people are so they don't just disappear into, I don't know, illegal work, the black market, or worse. So what do you say to this?
Well, it's just the latest round of nonsense, and it's just cruel theatre. There's not any policy purpose to it at all. The issue is there's a backlog of 175,000 people who are claiming asylum, and 10 years ago there were the resources to deal with all of those cases, mainly within 6 months, and now there are not, and so they don't get processed. So that number keeps on going up. So Bibi Stockholm, for example, of course, I think it's ridiculous to put people on these overcrowded barges with Legionnaire's disease. But even if you are in favour of that sort of thing, its maximum number is 500 people out of 175,000 people in your backlog. So if they were serious about dealing with the backlog, then you would hire more translators, more interpreters, more people to process the cases. You would pay for the legal support that's required to do it, because that is the way in which you're going to be able to judge people's cases and therefore assess the level of support and help that they should be given.
James, what about the
cases where they should be deported, then they can be deported.
What about the particular issue of absconding? Because we do know that people do. That is a fact. And we do know, particularly, it was a problem that was highlighted among Albanians who were crossing the channel in small boats. So this is a problem that the government does need to solve. And yes, progressing with the backlog may help. But what about those who abscond as soon as they arrive?
So
that is a problem that needs to be solved, no?
I mean, as you can see, the tagging isn't going to help at all. It's just people that aren't going to abscond are going to have their, you know, their rights impinged by people knowing where they are every moment of the day. But the people that are absconding doesn't do anything about. So if what you want to look at is where are people going, where are the black and grey parts of our economy, where is minimum wage not properly enforced, that's where you have to start looking. It's not about tagging and monitoring people because they will get around it. That's about enforcement of our labour laws. That's about working with trade unions to get onto construction sites to see who's working there and whether
Which, to be fair, the government has recently made announcements on, although one might say too little, too late. Ben, is it fundamentally cruel and inhumane to tag people anyway, in any case?
Well, let's just get this into perspective. These people are entering the United Kingdom illegally, having left a safe country, taking on this perilous journey, knowing that they will be deported if the government is to be taken seriously, which perhaps they don't do, because, you know, our government's hopeless in delivering the promises it makes. But I don't think there's anything cruel in tagging these people. They should, in my view, they should be arrested for entering the country illegally, and they should be detained, and then they should be deported. But here's the easiest way to deal with the backlog. Stop more people from coming. Get Border Force to do what their name suggests, which is to stop the boats in the channel, turn them round and send them back to France. And before anyone starts saying, oh, well, that's deeply dangerous, they're going to jump overboard, they're going to commit all sorts of self-harm in order to prevent the, you know, Border Force from doing its job. Remember, these people left a safe country. They paid money to leave France. They willfully, knowingly went into a dinghy making that dangerous journey. If they can make that dangerous journey 12.5 miles to our territorial waters, they can turn round and make the journey back to France. And we need to develop the political will and courage to enforce our borders. We can discuss other mechanisms by which people leave France to get to the UK. But we have to have robust border control.